In 1994, two fishermen drowned just below the recently closed Vhf Coastguard station at Base Point on the Lizard in Cornwall. The station had just closed a few months previously following a period of modernisation across the country by the Coast Guard. A group of volunteers got together to take action by opening the station to re-establish a watch over the coastline, and doing so creating the National Coastwatch Institution. Today the NCI has amassed over 2,000 volunteers, and that number is growing to man the 50 stations it currently occupies.
Due south, the horizon is approximately 5 miles away. If you go east and west, I mean on a really good day east, you can see the east wall from here. Going west, Worthing Pier's about your limit, and of course you can't see into the bay. That's our one big problem. We cannot see into the bay from here, because for the obvious reason we're that much further forward, and that makes it gives us a blind spot. I mean, when the fog comes in, you can't see the east up.
Standing behind me is what people would know as a Searchlight Tower from World War II. The National Coastwatch Institute are now using it, but it was actually an aiming light station. Built on top of Shoreham Fort were two 6-inch guns capable of firing up to 14 miles out to sea. It was the job of the people in this tower to actually look further out to sea with their binoculars or telescopes, and with the light that they would have had inside this tower and another one that was built further down the beach, they would arc their beams, and wherever those beams of light arced, that's where the 6-inch guns would aim for. It wasn't until anything got closer towards the beach that then they could aim accurately at them. In front of the tower was a Lewis gun pit as well, where the Lewis gunners would have stood behind sandbags. Ammunition would have been pushed out through the bottom of the tower, through a little ammo hole, and they would have had their Ross rifles up against the wall as well, as you see in one of the black and white photos.
The building here was always allocated to NCI by the Shoreham Port Authority and Ada Council, who we went to originally. The trustees approached them in 2007 before I came along, and they'd already inquired about getting the building here, although it was a bit dilapidated and it almost looked fit for being demolished. And we started up at Carrots Cafe on the car park over there in the promenade while this building was being renovated. So our initial training was actually done out in the open, at the back of a car, looking out over the sea and looking at the waves and the weather, which was, in hindsight, a very good way to learn about the sea and the sea state and what we had to look out for. So by the time we came to the building here, once it had been renovated, we were then able to drive around and base our training here, which originally was just half a day a week on a Wednesday morning. Whereas we have been around at Carrots Cafe, there was just a handful of us. The building was renovated, but it was a blank canvas inside. So we then had to go about fundraising to get equipment, and of course volunteers, more importantly, trying to recruit as fervently as we could to build the station up to what it is now.
To begin with, the National Coastwatch Chapter's temporary station here at the Carrots Cafe car park out of the back of a car. The station was originally manned by volunteers from New Haven. The Coastwatch then turned its attention to finding a more permanent location. It chose the World War II tower at the end of Shoreham Beach as its new location. It then set about renovating the tower. In that time, Barry was appointed the new station manager.
I reached a point where I had finished one particular job that I was doing, and I was fortunate enough to have the opportunity to go semi-retired. And I said to my wife, not sure what I want to get into, I'd like to do something voluntary if I could. And I went down to Carrots Cafe, which is where I used to go down for a break or a coffee or some breakfast. And I went down there on a particular Wednesday in 2008 and looked out of the window, and on the prom was the trustees' car with a couple of watchkeepers from New Haven, and they were advertising the new NCI at Shoreham, which was going to be built, and I was the first person to go along and take an application form. I had a look at what it was about, had a chat to them. It was voluntary, it was to do with the sea, which I love, and it's something I fancied getting into. So I said, I'll give it a try, and 6 years later I'm still here.
It's imperative that people think you spend all of your time looking south, but it's imperative that you look north as well. I mean, one of the worst incidents we've actually had is somebody that drowned behind us. We were aware of it and we did alert the correct people, but you know, it does happen. There is water, as you say, on all three sides. So, you have to be careful and you have to be alert.
Shoreham particularly is an exceptionally vulnerable spot because it's busy and it attracts both business and leisure. The harbour master himself will say that the problem with the port entrance is that everybody wants to use it, and sometimes at the same time we get a great leisure industry down here. It's a very popular spot for tourists to come to, with small leisure craft and people on the beach, and there's a mixture of that and the reasonably busy cargo port that Shoreham Harbour is. The fact that there is no other lookout here, that was the main thing. The fact that as a building it's sustainable because there's a very strong and high density of local people with a good knowledge of the area. So there are lots of watchkeepers today on station, all of whom, most live within about a mile of the station, 2 miles at the most, probably 60–70%. So we were able to recruit from local people. And even if you walk along the seafront at Carrots Caff, where we were originally based, there are signs there that warn you there is no lifeguard patrol or patrol along this section of the coast. So there is nobody looking, and if anybody gets into trouble, or there's problems, or somebody swimming gets into difficulty, or a vessel even discharges an emergency signal such as a flare or sounds a horn, it relies on somebody seeing it. And until we were here, there was no physical lookout from here. The last Coast Guard tower that existed here closed down in the late 70s, and there was nothing since then. So it was definitely needed, and the means to support it financially and actually staff it was quite prevalent in and around Shoreham, and so we started up.
Our task is simply to spot, to plot and report. So we look out for the vulnerable and we log the vulnerable, and in the summer it's quite easy to tell at a weekend particularly who are vulnerable. I don't have to explain that, do I?
As well as keeping a watch out using their eyes, they also listen to important Vhf channels to monitor and also use if the situation arises.
This is the Channel 0, which is the lifeboat, the helicopter. That's what happens when there's an emergency call. Channel 14 is the port channel. So it's all conversations with them, and of course with the pilot boats going in and out, and also of course any boat coming in with them will also be tuned into Channel 14. Channel 49 is Worthing Beach Office, which comes from, I think, Goring, isn't it?
No, it's actually at Worthing Pier.
Worthing Pier. Then we've got Channel 16, which is the ordinary calling channel. It's also the distress frequency. So if you had a mayday or a pan or a security call, they always come out on there. And Channel 67, the general communication channel. So if you get a mayday, it'll come through on there. And if the boat is registered, they will have pressed what is the red button. And that will then give you a readout on the screen of the boat and its position, latitude, longitude, which is absolutely terrific. Because then they know, I mean the Coast Guards then know like that.
The watchkeepers have a basic system when keeping watch. They plot, they spot, and if need be, report anything that goes on to the relevant people, such as the Coast Guard.
We plot it, we report it straight away to Searle. And although we can call them on the radio, we always do 999, because 999, it triggers the alarm bells at Searle, flashing red light, they answer that one first. And that's the way it works.
When the Coast Guard are contacted, they treat it as if men public have contacted them. This means that it's the Coast Guard's decision of what actions to take. So if it's to launch a lifeboat or any helicopters, or to instruct the NCI to monitor the situation. If the lifeboat is launched, they can work with the NCI to locate and find the casualty.
Yeah, fairly closely. I mean, it's We don't
you consider
talk
perhaps
to them
wireless
directly
keyboard
unless
or
they
wireless
ask
mouse, because
for
it
information
catches
from us.
your
But I mean, we will talk to the Coast Guard, who will then launch the lifeboat if necessary, if we have an incident. And I think Derek said earlier, we can see we're just that much further up, so if it's something local, the RNLI will come on and ask us to direct them onto the target, because we can see more from the 7 metres we're above sea level.
Yes.
Especially if you're in the ILB, as you said, which is a foot above sea level, and if you're only looking for a head in the water or something like that. So yeah, we work quite closely with them.
They have got more height, but we're coordinated when we're out at sea by the Coast Guard. They will ask us to search a particular area or look in a particular direction, or they'll ask us just to patrol a particular area and look out as we see fit. It may be that if NCI felt that we were looking in the wrong area, they would get on to Solent and advise them, and Solent may well pass that concern on to us. But there isn't any direct communication in the normal course of events. The thing is with the NCI, as the stations when the stations first set up, they're not allowed to use the radios. They're very restricted as to which radio channels they can operate on. And it's not until they've passed the relevant test by the Coast Guard service that they're allowed to use full radio channels. And I think that's not long happened for the NCI Tower in Shoreham. I can remember an occasion when we did want some information from them, and we did call them from the boat to their station and ask them if we were where we were in relation to the object that they'd spotted, and they conned the boat onto it. But normally the communications would go through Searle and Coast Guard, which is a good thing because they're the coordinating body and they're getting information from all sorts of people, and they can filter it. Otherwise the coxswain of the lifeboat could find himself darting around all over the place depending on who last spoke to him, really. At one time we launched following their report of a body in the water, and it turned out to be a bin bag. Now that's fine. A bin bag, it's a spread out black thing, and it can look like all sorts of things, I guess, in the water. But communication would be useful in a situation like that to establish that what we'd found was actually what they were looking at. So if the boat's alongside a bin bag and is saying, "Right, we found it, it's a bin bag, don't worry about it," and the tower is saying, "Hold on, it's not there, it's 200 yards south of that or west of that," then that would be a useful thing.
And phone call from Searle Coast Guard to say that there's a rig towing in two jet skis from off of Brighton. They should be off about the King Alfred at the moment. Can you see them, and can you keep an eye on them? So yeah, we could see them, or we kept an eye on them, and when they made the entrance, we phoned Solent and said they were in and okay, sort of thing. It's that sort of, because I doubt they had radios with them. I wrote how the call come through originally to Solent, I suspect by mobile phone. A lot of people rely on their mobile phones these days, which is silly because as soon as you're a few miles offshore, you know how up and down reception can be on land. Well, there's no masts out there. That's often the sort of call we get. Is you're a member of the public's 999 in something. Can we confirm what's going on before they get the helicopter out or something like that?
Just when you think you've covered everything, we have on station a database of local contacts and telephone numbers, mainly because we never know what we're going to come across next, because we're a uniformed organisation and we're right on the beachhead. We're very approachable. and we get members of the public coming in to see us, and likewise if there's an emergency we get the public coming in to alert us to it if it's something we haven't seen or can't see from where we are, and it is likely to be an emergency on the beach as it is somewhere out at sea. And we thought we'd got everything covered until one day a chap walked in and said that his dog had fallen off one of the parapets on the fort and injured its leg, and he needed to know where the nearest vet was. So we were able to actually Google that on our laptop and direct him to a vet in Shoreham High Street, which he was very grateful for. So we now have that telephone number on our database also.
At Shoreham, there's a blind spot. They are unable to look into the bay. So at certain times of the day, the watchkeepers go out on a beach patrol.
Yeah. Well, of course, we can't see from the lookout the beach here, nor can we see the two spending beaches, which are the beaches here and there. So the idea really is to patrol to make sure we get a good look at the beach and anything washed up, which is quite often the way it goes. And we do it certainly first watch, and then probably we'll have to do it in the summer if it's busy. Every other watch we can do it, because the things which we can't see happening. We had a phone call from Searle Coast Guard last year when I was on. Somebody was calling a mayday from just outside Harbour Arm. We couldn't see it. They were not within 500 yards of us and we couldn't see a thing. So we go down the other end so we can see the whole of the way, and of course also into the bay, which we can't see from the lookout. And you've got a fabulous view here.
And if the weather's good, you have a lot of people on the beach, on the arms. It just changes from day to day, and you do get silly people doing silly things. And that's really what we're here to look after, are the people doing the silly things. Yeah, good afternoon to you. This is Shoreham NCI. We have 4 children on the end of the east arm playing with the life preserver, and there's no rope attached either, so they're youngsters. They're probably in their early teens.
Well spotted.
I mean, they have replaced it, but there is no rope attached to it, so if someone throws it over the side, it's not a lot of use.
No.
I mean, there are some 55 of us now trained as watchkeepers.
To become a watchkeeper, you have to have visited the station first of all, ideally to have a chat to the watchkeepers on watch, so that you've got an idea of what the station is, and that physically you can approach the station and actually get up the steps okay. It's not an easy place to get to if you've got difficulty in moving about. If your mobility is good and your eyesight is good, you come into the station and have a look at what we do. The watchkeepers will explain a little bit about what the organisation is and the fact that we're voluntary, and if people are interested at that stage they can take an application form from the station. That has my name and address at the bottom of it. They can either phone me or they can simply fill the application in and send it to me, and then I meet them on station for an interview, quite informal, explain to them more in depth about how our training works, which is all on station. If at that point they're still interested, then they start on a 3-month probationary period. We are expected to deliver a high level of reliability, and for that reason we give people plenty of time to decide whether it's for them or not. So we have a 3-month probationary period, which is approximately the time it takes them to do their training. So once they've done a few watches, we monitor them, we keep in touch with them. The training officer monitors how they're progressing through their training, and they go through a series of small assessments, and when they do a final assessment, that's their watchkeeper qualification. If they're happy and confident and we're happy with them, then they get accredited with watchkeeper status and they carry on from there.
It's the walks of life that I find fascinating.
Yes.
I mean, the different walks of life. I mean, there are people that have got absolutely nothing to do with the sea until they came down here, and there's others that have had a lifetime attached to the sea in one way or another.
And we've got a consultant, an anaesthetist and a plumber.
Yeah.
The station is open to the public, so unless we've actually got some kind of procedure going on, or there is actually a rescue going on, or a response, then obviously we would ask people to wait outside the station. But if it's quiet and the watchkeepers are just doing their watch and there isn't actually an incident occurring, then the station is open to the public. People can go in, have a chat to them, have a look at what we do, have a look at some of the pictures on the notice board, and we encourage people to sign a visitor's book with comments to say that they visited. We've got signatures from all over the country and all around the world, in actual fact, people that have come and visited. We get visitors from other parts of the country that are watchkeepers, and they want to see what another station looks like because they're all different in different parts of the country and on different parts of the coastline and different designs and so on.
Quite a few people come in, I mean, and they're reasonably generous, which is the most important part, as it's donations that keeps this running completely. I thought we were going to get one earlier on because the guy came in the gate but he turned around and went back again.
He saw me.
The fundraising is quite active. The two main fundraising abilities from the station, firstly we've got collecting pots such as this one throughout the town in various shops and places, and those get emptied on a regular basis. They're in shops on Ferry Road, on Shoreham Beach and in Shoreham High Street, and those provide a small but regular income which is important to us, and the money gets spent on the station and the maintenance and various fees that we have to pay ourselves, such as certain insurances and liabilities. And the other one is talks that I do, and my station secretary Laurie, we do talks to groups, and in fact we did one this afternoon to various either pensioner groups, tea groups, afternoon groups, retired meeting groups, social groups, and we do a talk and a presentation on the station, the history of the organisation and how we operate and what we do, which involves a VGA projector, and they like to look at photos and pictures of what we've done and what happens. We take the collecting pot, and we also normally receive a donation cheque from the group for what we've done, and we take no expenses from that. We explain that we're a voluntary organisation, a registered charity, and most people actually give very generously, and we're very well supported. And we also have a scheme called Friends of Shoreham. So Friends of Shoreham NCI can pay a yearly subscription in return for a newsletter that goes out quarterly that I edit, and they get a little bit of inside information on the station, the newsletter, and it's for people who want to support the station who may not be in a position to be able to volunteer for us, but they want to support us financially and have a little bit of something to do with the station. So that's the main ways that we actually fundraise, which just enough to keep us going.
I keep repeating this, but because our primary object is to use Mark 1 eyeball, I mean that's the best aim you've got, and you'd be surprised what you start to pick up on what you see without realising it. I mean, even earlier on, I mean, I know it's fairly obvious, but it just catches your eye. You get used to looking for the unusual, really. That's what it's all about.
You learn to look differently, don't you?
But without, I mean, what I find is I am always looking, but I'm not concentrating. I know that sounds silly, but if you was to stand here and permanently look through binoculars to the front of this building, within half an hour your eyes would be so sore that you're useless. But to do it the way we do it, you are always watching what's going on around you, and you're aware of what's going on around you. And I think that's probably the best way to explain it.
In the last last time was a pan, and they gave a position. They said they were off the bar station.
Yeah.
They weren't.
No.
They were off the chimney at Beecham's, so they were off Lancing.
All right. Yeah. Yeah.
So of course we were all looking desperately out there,
Yeah.
and suddenly, oh, hello,
Yeah.
no, they were over there.
I mean, it's not high-tech equipment. We don't need high-tech equipment. When and if we get the radar back, yeah, it's a useful piece of equipment, but it's not. I don't think it's as good as Mark Reliable would, unless you're really good at using it, and we're not all really good at using it. I mean, most of us know what we're looking at, but it's not it's not so easy as it is using Mark Reliable and a pair of binoculars.
And with the NCI continually growing nationally, we hope that eventually we can have eyes watching across all of our coastline. This will ensure the safety of ourselves out at sea and along the shore when we have trained and dedicated volunteers keeping an eye out.